Good morning, everyone. This is Chris Korupati from Cambian Lab. Today's session is on build better products faster. We're going to discuss various digital workflows for new product introduction, sustaining engineering, and component engineering excellence. With me are my colleagues, Hiren Shah and Manish Mathur. As far as logistics of this session are concerned, we're going to spend about 10 to 12, 13 minutes, setting up the stage for some of these digital workflows. After that, we will do a 25 to 30 minute demonstration using our solution ZFlow. We will keep all of the question and answers session towards the end. So that means the last 15 minutes or so will be open for Q&A. However, it is quite possible that you are, your questions are coming up as the topic is going on. So please type in your questions into the Q&A panel. So if you look at your Zoom bar, the fourth position is called Q&A. If you could type in your question there, we will answer that question towards the end of the session. If we don't get a chance to answer the question in the time that we have today, we will respond via email. You also have the option of setting up a one-on-one session with us if more details are needed. Okay, with that, I can get started with the session. About Cambian Lab, we are a Bay Area-based company. We do have teams in Boston and Detroit, but we primarily came from the operations side of new product development and supply chain. In the later part of our careers, we spent significant time at technology companies, software companies like SAP, Siemens, etc. So we have a good perspective on both sides of the fence. What are the needs of new product and supply chain development professionals, as well as what does the current technology solutions offer and what is possible as we move forward. So that'll be focus of our session today. Most of our customers come from automotive, high-tech, medical device, where design and supply chain development are fairly central to how they operate. Today, we are going to be talking or using ZFlow. It's one of our flagship solutions. It's a digital workflow for product supply chain. That's what we'll be using to demonstrate some of the more innovative concepts that we have come up with to support new product development, new product introduction, sustaining and component engineering. Okay. So if you really see what the opportunities or challenges, if you want to call them, are from an NPI and sustaining engineering excellence are concerned, it continues to be, after all of these years, the siloed nature of various processes. And I used to work in engineering, and it was still very engineering centric, everything that we do. Whereas to speed up new product development or any of the cross-functional workflows, you need a lot more cross-functional processes or workflows that need to flow through the organization and supply chain. Now, unfortunately, when supply chain is involved, I'm assuming a number of your organizations rely on suppliers for components and throughout the overall design to delivery and service business process. It's even more complicated when suppliers are involved throughout. And when we looked at why that is happening, and what we found is the cross-functional workflows that are extremely common in NPI, sustaining engineering, or component engineering. Nothing stopped. There are multiple functions are always involved. There is usually nothing that exists. Or if there is any, it still continues to be a tool for a department, not necessarily for across the organization or helps you reach into the supply chain. That continues to be an issue. And whatever we saw was very, what called technology centric and not necessarily accessible for purchasing or engineering or quality teams. So it is still a problem. Obviously, this has some severe consequences. There continues to be a lot of new product launch issues. Supplier readiness is an issue. Even if suppliers are able to do the job, their continued performance is not guaranteed, right? So obviously, there are a lot of bad consequences that can be addressed. So what we have done, since we come from new product development and supply chain development, are top areas, we've designed a workflow engine we think is probably maybe the best in terms of solving these cross-functional workflow issues. And there's a reason why we put a digital Swiss Army knife here, only because all the capabilities that are needed to support cross-functional workflows effectively are built into the system. So you don't have to look outside or spend a lot of time and money pulling in different sets of tools and stitching them together. And one of the good things about ZFlow is that there are a lot of fairly sophisticated workflow applications, we should say, that cover a gamut of supplier, new product, and supply chain development. You can start in one place and go another, but where you find a compelling need is where you can use ZFlow. Okay, so a lot of specific cross-functional processes around NPI, supplier development. We see master data many times as an integral part of this. It just happens in ZFlow as part of these various business processes. So if you look at NPI process orchestration, what is needed, at the high level, most people would agree that, hey, we have a voice of customer or requirements analysis when we start off planning for a new product and go through different stages. Once it goes into production, you obviously transfer the product into sustaining engineering mode. What is more common, however, some things a lot of approaches miss is that there is a lot of supporting activity that is going on, from suppliers to process development and design to verification, validation, feedback process with if you have lots of prototypes. So all of these need to be orchestrated while the new product introduction, whichever method you use, phase gate or stages that are moving on from a overall workflow perspective. And it's even better if you can integrate with all the systems that you touch, the process, the workflows touch or connect to interoperate with as the orchestration is going on. So this is really our focus. How do you take it from an idea to production and sustaining engineering of a product, while supporting all the functions and the systems that actually do some of the work. And if you look at sustaining engineering and continuous improvement, that has often been something, people transfer it over to a sustaining engineering department and forget about it. We believe for a lot of industries, that's where the real opportunity for improvement is, from learning from failure to improvements and customer feedback coming in. And how do you reduce this cycle of learning, improving, and actually putting it in front of customers, right? So there are a number of processes that we support to really make this faster and faster and more effective. So with ZFlow, we believe, and we know from our customers that NPI and sustaining engineering and component engineering processes are much, much, much faster. You just have to try it and you will see it. We'll see part of that today in the demo. We have a very strong productivity and speed improvement, claims here, and we have seen this happen. So you'll see in the demo why that is. And another thing about ZFlow is, it's just not a workflow management tool, but it also has, especially for NPI, sustaining engineering and supply chain development, we provide a number of tools as part of the workflows. So if you look at a lot of these, these are coming from, for example, advanced product quality planning, the framework, product development framework that is used to create reliable and robust products and processes, right? So a lot of those tools are embedded within the solution, and if needed, you can use them as part of the overall NPI and launch processes. So we'll see a few of these. Suppliers and customers can be integral to your product development process. ZFlow is designed to support supply chain oriented workflows. So you want to bring suppliers in, it's very, very easy to do. Same thing applies for customers. We'll look at a few of these different types of workflows that you can use. What you will also see is the workflows are fairly information rich, and will take and also integrate with all the systems that integrate, that really come as part of the workflow. And there is a need for interoperation. For example, if we need to create a new supplier or new manufacturer part, in an ERP system or supply chain planning systems, it happens automatically as part of the workflow. We'll look at a few of these component engineering innovations. We'll look at a few, how to handle PCNs intelligently and quickly. What's the strategy for end of life? And we'll also look at some of the risk management program and supply chain risk management tools that are available. Okay, so with that, what I will do is going to the demo. We'll have a number of stages. We have a few actors here. I will be using ZLab as the main organization that is using ZFlow, and working with for example, Intel as a part supplier. Customer is ZTT, right? So you'll see some of the workflows that happen within the organization and between the supply chain participants. The first thing we'll look at is stage gate based NPI programs. How do you orchestrate them? Those are not simple at all. Those are one place where it is a very, very effective way to do new product introductions, in our opinion. Probably the one more so than anything else, especially for intricate products. We look at how to use new part releases and sub-processes for new component selections, manufacturer selections. We will also, after that, look at some component engineering workflows, sustaining engineering workflows. And we'll close it off with some high-level tools for risk. How do you measure risk, both program and supply chain risks, and integration and workflow, okay? All right, so with that, what I have here in front is ZFlow with a number of technique tools and workflows set up for NPI, sustaining engineering, and component engineering excellence. Okay, so you'll see that any appropriate users can come in and use any of these tools. We also, onto the left, have this is Safari browser. This is Chrome browser. This is the company view. This is a supplier participating, collaborating with the company. So ZLab here and Intel as a supplier here. So we'll be using these two browsers as we are working through the demo scenarios. So what I'll do first start is if you're doing a new product development program, you have a number of techniques that you can use. So obviously, if you're tackling a large scale program yourself, you're going to be using the, we call it advanced APQP program, but you can use it, the whatever NPI process that you have is what you can use it. We use, for demo purposes, we are using APQP. It's very, because it's one of the most common frameworks used in several industries, especially automotive, so on. So if you look at it, it has a number of risk items that people are evaluating as part of the overall program. There's a component risk, obviously capacity allocation. So in the beginning itself, people are actually able to highlight the risks, program risks, right? Both from a product, process, and overall market. Any number of risks can be assigned, and obviously you're going to prioritize which have the most highest RPN, risk priority number, and have some mitigation actions. In addition, we have also set up for this program a number of roles that will participate as part of the product development, and actual members within the organization that will participate in this new product, ZFlow Next 2021 late edition, right? So this is the responsibility of this cross-functional team to orchestrate this new product introduction for ZFlow Next. So the next thing you will see is this. We have set this up as what we call a phase gate approach. So we will do different activities, and I'll show that to you as part of phase 1, which is to plan and define. Phase 2 is product design and development. Phase 3 is process design and development. And after completing each of these phases, you may actually have a review. Generally, if I come here and actually show you this tree view, it's a lot more effective. It's a little busy. I'll show you why. I can close off this. Okay. We're not interested in the supplier process at this point, so I'll close that off. So when you set up the program in phase 1, the tasks, this is a very unique workflow which actually allows you to integrate projects as part of the workflow. So you can see that the phase 1 project plan and define includes a number of 7 activities here. Phase 2 is a number of design related activities. Phase 3, so on, right? So after each of those phases, there is a gate review, and then it moves on to the next phase. By the time you're done with this, you should be pretty confident. Once you activate this workflow, it'll take over and actually assign different users, different people, sets up everything that is needed for the actual NPI stage gate process execution. This is unique in the sense that most of the time we have seen there are project management tools, or there are, I would say, execution or doing the work type of tools. They are disconnected. In ZFlow, they both are connected here. You can actually go ahead and manage all your design information. You are actually doing FMEAs if you want to use the tools, of course, right? All of that is happening step by step as this workflow is executing. Right? So the team is formed, feasibility review is done, and you might actually have customer requirements as part of the process, and risk management is all being done. So it's a holistic way of approaching how you want to orchestrate and actually execute all of the tasks that are involved in a much more controlled fashion. Okay, the other thing that you will see is that obviously this is going to require supplier participation. Suppliers have to be ready to do that. You need to be able to get them integrated into this overall program. In ZFlow, you can actually do something. You can support what is called a sub process, where here in this case one of the component suppliers, Intel, who is supplying A10X, which is part of the overall product, it is a critical supplier, right? So we need to monitor exactly, or at least collaboratively work on, them supporting the Z Phone X program. So for that, we've set up what is called a supplier production approval process. So if you look at this workflow, it includes a number of, again, a stage gate for suppliers. Like you are really working with the supplier at this point using, and this makes sense for key suppliers, especially if you are coming in, high tech and high-tech, automotive, aerospace. The key suppliers that work with you, you are just as responsible for making sure that they are following the process and providing and making sure they're actually doing all of these. And the one way to do that is to make sure you include them as part of your overall NPI program. And that's what the stage gate process with supplier inclusion or setting up sub processes for suppliers would actually help you do that in a very, very clean and controlled manner. So the next, this is a pretty popular one. A lot of our especially on the automotive side, they use this stage gate, APQP stage gate process. Again, you can design your stage gate or any new product development process. Whether if you support waterfall methods, or in some cases, people have been trying agile techniques. You can set that up as part of ZFlow workflows and use them as a way to execute the overall orchestration. So once it is done, once you've set up the overall program, you continue to do a number to support that program. For example, Z Phone X, you actually do have to design a board for RF front end, right? So this is RF front end, which has, it's a simple BOM, right? People are designing these or redesigning these as part of new or refresh programs. You still have to support these types of release processes. For example, in this case, we are actually using a number of steps, manual as well as automated workflow activities. For example, we import the board and schematic from Mentor, and the data is obviously, the full BOM is actually created. We've, in ZFlow, people typically handle very, very large, printed circuit BOMs. We have support for a lot of very deep needs around reference designators, checks, and integration with MES systems. So those are all with SAP, etc. So you are releasing this as part of the overall process, and the workflow includes a number of steps, right? If there are new components that are coming in, we need to also select a new component manufacturer as part of that. If you want to build a prototype, you can't go ahead and buy parts, right, off the shelf. You need to load those BOMs into SAP, prototype BOMs, and then, get the purchasing to work on it. Same thing, there's a firmware verification, validation, testing. All of that either can be executed or orchestrated from here or set up as sub-processes, workflows. Then if you notice, release production BOM to SAP. So what is happening here is the workflow is pulling together people and system integration activities into a single workflow so that it's not broken down and people are waiting for something to happen. And when this workflow goes through, this BOM will be available with the approved vendor parts, approved manufacturers in SAP so that purchasing can actually happen. Right? So what we have here, this is a new part. This BOM actually has some components which don't have approved manufacturers yet. So what we've done is started a child process to actually request a new component manufacturer. So in this case, the design engineer is saying, hey, we need to buy this part number. Part number is not issued yet. Okay. And we would like to select Texas Instruments GC5325 as a NPN for this component. And if you look at this workflow, it includes then the component engineering team is going to look at it, say, yeah, the design engineer said, we need to buy this TI, actually qualify and get it into the system, right? Following component engineering review, there is a traditional process of supplier quality, purchasing, etc. And then guess what? We need to actually, to do this job properly, we need to create an item in Agile, create a part in Oracle, and update the AVL, AML in Oracle. All of those things will happen as part of this workflow, right? So that there is no break in the overall orchestration that is happening. Okay, so that's the nature of how ZFlow supports, what we call orchestration. What can start in one department can flow into the next department, and there is always a very clear picture of how everything is coming together. So if you look at this thing, there's a new board, all of the steps that are going on in the workflow, and then as part of the new component manufacturer qualification, there's a sub-process that actually started for qualifying envelope tracking TI manufacturer part for a specific component. And it's all done once everything is updated, set up in Agile, Oracle, and other areas. Okay, so if you are in design or in purchasing, everyone has a full picture. All of this is orchestrated. Many of the tasks are automated. So what used to take maybe perhaps 2 months or 3 months can actually, the tediousness of the process can be dramatically reduced for people that are participating. But importantly, the speed, right? Now that the coordination is happening smoothly, handovers are happening fast, and everybody has visibility, this can reduce by 20, 30, even 50% from a cycle time perspective. Same things that we see in a lot of sustaining engineering parts. Again, and when we told sustaining engineering, that can be a number of things. We see sustaining engineering driven from quality improvements, failures, quality improvements. Sustaining engineering based upon certain goals. So here is a good example of someone set up a sustaining engineering program. Like every quarter there's an improvement goal. As part of that, their goal is reduce the BOM cost by 20%, right? It's maybe a little bit excessive, but that's the idea here. And then, what are the different elements that they're actually implementing as part of this sustaining engineering program this quarter, right? There is a cost reduction initiative, not approved yet, that belongs to purchasing. And there is a PCN implementation, Broadcom PCN implementation. and because Broadcom is end of lifing one of the parts. Those are the elements of this sustaining engineering program. And you can again use orchestration, sub processes, and we'll see one of those today, right? So if a Broadcom PCN were to be implemented as part of this, it may happen as part of sustaining engineering, or you can do it independently. So we have a very sophisticated PCN analysis tool. The PCN analysis tool actually, if you guys know PCNs, these are sent out by manufacturers saying, hey, we are going end of life on particular components, right? So if you're going end of life, as a company, you need to understand, hey, what's the hit on us? So we have a search capability that actually looks at all of your components, finds out which matching components internally are affected by this PCN. So the PCN MPN that the Broadcom has set up is BRBB-321, right? So it matched one of the components, baseband parts, and that baseband is actually used in these assemblies. It is actually used in communications module. Better to view it like this because it gives a better picture. So the PCN is used, impacts this baseband part, which is used in the communication modules, which is used in the two finished goods, ZPhone X and Y-Phone. So this PCN actually impacts two of your largest selling products. So obviously you need to do something about it, right? So one of the things that we have here is a tool to quickly look at. Let me show you what. What are impacts of specific components. So it actually looks at, people can run this just to make sure, right? What impact a specific component has on by customer, by product, sales orders, forecasts, etc. Right? So just from a sourcing risk, every now and then, you need to make sure. But especially when a PCN comes through, you actually have to act on it. So one of the things that we do provide here is within the component engineering area, a PCN analysis tool that looks at all of that, the workflow perspective, and actually creates a component change request, which, if from coming from a component engineering perspective, you have to now really look at, how do we replace this with a new manufacturer part or take some action, right? What used to be a production part is now gone into end of life, right? So either you have to get a new manufacturer that is a drop-in replacement for this part, or you may have to redesign a little bit so that you can have another component. So that's one of the issues with understanding the risk associated with single sourcing, multi-sourcing. What are the implications from a design, engineering, purchasing perspective? Right? So those are the things that you have to worry about. Here in this case, if you look at it, the company has decided to end of life this component altogether and is going to decide about that later on, either using a last time buy or some other technique. So if you look at it from a graphical perspective, so there was a PCN that was done. So let's go back to all the way to the top. So there's a PCN. We selected all the affected assemblies. Now that part, because it's a single sourced item, you do have to do something about it, either select another manufacturer which we do that using the component change notice or change request. And if nothing is found, we're going to just look at what to do about this end of life, right? So we will look at CCN, and in the end of life, you can pretty much determine what to do about it. In most cases, in this scenario, they're doing a last time buy purchase order. Okay, so you can orchestrate that whole scenario. Something happens, either as a PCN or an engineering change. How do you propagate or improvement request that comes from a customer, right? Or you have a goal to reduce BOMs, cost, or improve manufacturing process yield, et cetera. So you can use that as a means to drive complete either sustaining engineering processes. Okay. The other thing that we wanted to also highlight here is, we've added some additional tools for, especially if you can get data from your supply chain to really monitor and measure some of the supply chain risks that can come up. When we were joking today about the ship that's blocking Suez Canal, right? So you can, if you know your supply chain networks, how things are going to be coming to you, you can actually start to keep some risk scores along these different elements of the supply chain or different aspects of the supply chain itself. So this would be a supply chain network, but if you really want to also look at the supply chain risk specific to a product, you can also do that. We provide some tools for both qualitative and quantitative assessments. For example, in ZFlow Next, these are the critical components from a overall risk management perspective. And you can, as part of your supply chain planning or supply chain risk, you can manage these components and risk values and keep monitoring. Right. So that's overall at the assembly level or as well as the individual component. So obviously we are keeping track of, some of the high level and key components here and the supplier capability as well as some of the logistics risk. Okay. So this way you can have a good handle of what could happen and what are the potential mitigation measures are. Okay, so we've covered quite a bit of ground over the last 2 minutes. At the end of the day, the key here is that you have an orchestration engine in ZFlow that really ties all the disparate, we would call it different functional areas and your supply chain together into one single thread or multiple threads, that are all related, right? So last one we want to cover is, if you do, several of you are also involved in quality, making sure high quality products are released or the quality is continuously improving. This is a case where a RMA came through. Okay, we've just, typically RMAs are used, there's some other system that actually processes RMAs, possibly your customer service team and solution. But if an RMA comes, ZFlow can actually get that and set up an actual analysis. So we can actually do a workflow activity here to do an RMA evaluation, and importantly, if there is an issue, create a failure report. All right, so here is a RMA that resulted, and the comment from the customer is phone is getting very hot after 30 minutes of usage. We did some preliminary assessment, the A10X SOC may be a root cause, right? So you can do all of the root cause analysis. We provide tools for like 5 whys and, fishbone diagrams, etc., a way to handle root cause analysis. Once the root cause analysis is done, you probably are setting up a corrective action, right? A corrective action could be many things. It can be assigned to the supplier here, in this case, Intel. They have to do something about the SSE BGA packaging, right? So now you're following through if some issue comes up. So when we go back to the top, I want to go back to the RMA and actually show graphically what happens. So you got an RMA, led to a failure report, failure analysis. There was a corrective action issued for Intel, and which needed an ECO, ECR, and an ECO to go through. So ZFlow can be used to orchestrate this whole activity, or overall, we can say high-level process, but also push through these different individual departmental functions and tie them all together. So this type of coordination, today we looked around, is just not possible anywhere. And that's where I think we are seeing a lot of success for customers trying to that have fairly intricate NPI and sustaining engineering and quality improvement programs. This pretty much makes sure that it is being driven through and visibility is there and things are getting done. So once all of this is happening, you also have quite a bit of insights that you can obtain from ZFlow itself as more and more processes are going through. Right, we start to calculate the cycle times involved. For example, if you look at these insights, new board development, we know how long it takes. There are not enough processes here, but we also can keep track of where the bottleneck activities could be. Okay, and as I had indicated, the workflows are always connected to different systems. So if you have ERP, supply chain planning, procurement systems, we connect to them directly, the workflows. Different steps of the work activities of workflow are actually nothing but they're getting information from different systems or putting information into different systems. Here in this case, SAP, Salesforce, they're all connected to this workflow. And though the different APIs that are used are also very accessible for people. So you can, when you're designing your own workflows, you can use these APIs directly and then make them part of your workflows. So the best thing here is these workflows, the cross-functional workflows, can be designed by, you don't have to rely on your long 6-month to 1-year programs with development engineering teams doing something and coming back to you. You are in charge as an NPI professional or sustaining engineering program management experts. You can do it yourself. This cross-functional workflow design and making them available and tying it together. Okay, so with that, we will open up the session for Q&A. Just to give you a little bit, if, for example, one of our customers, once they're done, what they do is to release a number of these workflows that are all either individually or tied together, so that they can actually support NPI and sustaining engineering from beginning to end. So you can see from new part releases to all the way end of life level activities going on, and everything in between. So beginning to end for NPI and sustaining engineering. And in between is where we are covering component engineering. Okay, and I will come to the question and answer now. Let me look at the. Yes, there is a question about, can I launch workflows programmatically, example, as a result of a ticket in CRM, launch a compliant process? Yeah, absolutely, yes. Each of these workflows here that you see can be instantiated from external systems. We have such connectivity to Salesforce and others where they do provide a hook so that a customer complaint comes and you can start a failure request, or an RMA comes, or you can use any of these workflows. Obviously, you can design your own workflows. The goal of ZFlow is so that you can actually design the way it should work for your company. Most of the time, by the time our customers are done, they'll exactly have, if you have a quality management system or product development process system, ZFlow is designed to exactly mimic or support or improve most of the time what they already have. Yeah, so there is a question of being the information kept in different solutions. Yes, we do. That's one of the key areas that we actually added, is to direct interoperability within the systems with other systems. You don't need another middleware or another integration system to do this. You design the tools that are needed, and these APIs can be some of the most sophisticated to some of the most simple. So here in this case, a lot of these APIs are getting, for example, RFQs, POs, creating bombs, check for vendors. So if you have systems like Salesforce or SAP, is probably where most of the intricacy comes. SAP has thousands of APIs, from purchasing to sales to production planning, materials management, etc. And ZFlow supports all of those APIs. You just have to call and then connect those to different workflow objects that are going through. So in this case, the workflow object is connected to various different SAP data element over there, typically a material, right? So very, very easy to set up those integration maps. Yeah, so there is a question about PCN analysis. The way PCN analysis works in this thing is, we've developed mostly a PCN impact analysis, I would say. Obviously, when an email comes from the company, we provide an Excel import tool. Typically, depending upon how many parts that they send, you can import that Excel tool and it'll fill out the first part. Right. This is what most of the time your PCN people send. Let's call it this. Issue date. Let's say receipt date is last week. Right. So this is what they will send. You can import those, load those using a CSV file, an Excel file. Once it is done, this is the information that you actually get from a PCN. It could be one or multiple. So let's try with one, because you can see what happens. When I save this, the system actually goes and looks at the internal part. And the way this works is, if you look at that, let's look at that part, baseband. Yeah, just 1 second. Okay, like I can use this one. Search, go to Launchpad, and let me look at the parts. So you have Broadcom as a manufacturer and Skyworks as the other two manufacturers, right? So you are you got a PCN that looks like this, that has BRBB221. You know, we've seen these Excel sheets come through. What it does is it looks at this PCN manufacturer part number, strips off all of the special characters, because we have seen a lot of special characters being used inconsistently all over the place, and then try to match, you know, what is the manufacturer part. So what we found here is that this manufacturer part is used. It's called in baseband. And guess what? The baseband is also actually used. If you go look at this part assembly report, you look at where used deep, it shows 3 of those. So where used actually is only used. It is only used immediately from a communication module, right? However, that communication module could be used in multiple products. So you can run this where used deep. And it found, like, you know, ZPhone X and iPhone as the 2 other products. So it now throws these are the assemblies that are impacted. At this point, you need to decide what to do with this, right? You know, you have lots of options. If you have a multiple, in this case, Skyworks is also a qualified part, you don't really need to do anything. You know, this can go end of life and you can still purchase Skyworks. If Broadcom is the only one that is there for this qualified manufacturer part, you actually have to do something about it. Right? Typically, a lot of customers use end of life management process to do something, you know, typical last time buys or redesign or find an alternate parts and so on. I hope that answers the question. Okay. Yeah. So we have, you know, many of those tools are, you know, fairly useful from a component engineering perspective. Actually, it's very hard to do a component engineering process without some of these workflows and tools that are available. Okay. Yeah, so we are continually adding, you know, more and more workflows into this. You know, close to that is, you know, we also have a fairly a rich set of supplier development workflows. That's also used extensively by many companies that have a fairly deep or integral supply chain as part of NPI product development process, right? So there they have to use you know, qualify suppliers, do vendor assessments and supplier risk assessments. So there are also integrated tools for supplier development that complement the NPI workflows that you can use. Then we also have some master data, but these two, when you combine the NPI, new product development, and supplier development, you know, you almost can have a full-fledged orchestration to do both of them, and that's our value proposition. It's both product and supply chain development. Today we only covered NPI workflows. Okay, so with that we have a couple more minutes. What we do want to do is offer a, you know, and these are some very compelling tools for NPI and sustaining and component engineering excellence. But, you know, we understand that, you know, you have to first try before you you see that is being effective for your organization, right? We offer a couple of options here. One is you can test drive ZFlow. That runs on our own cloud environment. You get your own ZFlow with all of the different workflows that you can try out and see how it works. The other option, probably something I'd say some of our customers adopt, is, hey, we want to do a free proof of concept. If we want to take what we have, some of what we have, obviously not all of what we have, and see how it will work within ZFlow. We can then try it and see if it is effective. We can then make that decision about if we want to use ZFlow. So both of them are options that you can use now to see if it works. ZFlow will work for your NPI and sustaining engineering. We would be more than happy to support. So just let us know, and we can coordinate a discussion. For us, it takes only a few minutes to get both of these instances up and running. We can set up a half-an-hour session to discuss and how you can get started and how we can support a free proof of concept. Yeah, so one of the things that we found, especially this semiconductor and electronic component, we would call it supply chain hiccup that is currently going on, is you definitely need to, at least depending upon the level of relationship you have with your semiconductor distribution suppliers or direct manufacturers, you need to really understand what is going on. What the allocations are, and if you need to plan for some level of disruption or demand variation, supply variation. So all of our tools really do help you get that visibility into that. Okay. So with that, we have 1 minute. Please, if you would like to try or proof of concept, you can send us an email. What we'll do is we'll have this recording available once Zoom shares the cloud recording with us. We'll send the presentation as well as the recording. Our contact information will be there, and we can, if you need to reach us, please feel free to email us with any additional questions you have. With that, thank you very much for the time, and have a great day. There was one question around can it project dashboards. Yes, we do have a number of reporting environment here that actually allows you to create different dashboards, etc. But we also provide a number of tools within the insight section that you saw that can do it. Can you briefly? There was another question on, can you please explain process flow for new part creation and modification? So yes, we do. The new part creation and modification or new alternate replacements primarily use either new part release, new part request processes, or new component or component change requests. In either case, we do actually have the option of setting up all of the different information, having a cross-functional workflow, and creating the materials or parts where they actually go, whether it is your ERP system like SAP or Oracle NetSuite, or even into certain PLM systems that don't have this capability. Okay, from a new part. So in many cases, we've supported a variety of scenarios, from generating part numbers to requesting part numbers from systems like SAP before a material is actually created, part is created. For alternate replacements, we traditionally, a normal process that is used is component change request. That's where alternates are added, as well as new manufacturer parts are added. I hope that helps. Okay. And again, thank you for the time. And you should get this presentation as well as the recording soon.